Let's be real, studying can feel like a total drag. But what if you could learn way faster and actually remember more without chaining yourself to your desk for hours on end? Well, we're about to break down 6 science-backed hacks that are going to completely change the way you study. Let's jump right in.
Oh, you know this feeling. The books are open, the highlighters are all lined up, and bam! Suddenly organizing your closet by color seems like the most important thing you could possibly be doing. You tell yourself, just one quick video, then maybe a snack, and before you know it, you're wondering if you even need this degree anyway. It's a classic struggle, right? But it actually points to a much bigger problem.
And here it is, this is the core issue. So many of us are just trapped on this hamster wheel of studying hard, but not studying smart. We trick ourselves into thinking that just rereading our notes over and over is the same as learning, but it's not. It just leads to hours of wasted time and that awful sinking feeling of your mind going completely blank during the actual exam.
So how do we get off that hamster wheel? Well, our first step is all about outsmarting our own brains. We're going to look at a couple of super simple psychological tricks you can use to crush procrastination and get laser focused, like right now.
Okay, our first trick comes from something called Parkinson's Law. It's a really simple but powerful idea. Work will always expand to fill the time you give it. So if you tell your brain, okay, we have 3 hours to read this chapter, guess what? It's going to find a way to take all 3 hours. Why? Because our brains are, kind of lazy. They're hardwired to conserve energy whenever possible.
So how do we hack this? Simple. You just flip the script. Instead of setting this huge, intimidating goal like, I have to study for 3 hours straight, just tell yourself, I'm just going to study for 20 minutes. See, that task is so small, so non-threatening that your brain doesn't even bother to put up a fight. And here's the crazy part. Once you start, you almost always just keep going. Getting started is the hardest part.
Building on that, let's talk about creating a sense of urgency. You ever notice how you suddenly get superhuman focus the night before a huge deadline? It's like your brain just kicks into overdrive. That's the power of a countdown. And the good news is, we can actually manufacture that same feeling to trigger that hyper-focus whenever we need it.
Here's how it works. You set a timer for, say, 30 minutes. And for those 30 minutes, you work with intense focus. No phone, no distractions. Then, and this is the most important part, you take a completely guilt-free 5-minute break. This isn't being lazy, it's being strategic. These short sprints prevent burnout, and the promise of that little break keeps your brain totally engaged. Then you just rinse and repeat.
Okay, so now that we've figured out how to actually start studying, let's talk about making that time count. This next part is all about techniques that'll help you learn things faster and, more importantly, lock them into your long-term memory for good. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. This idea, often attributed to Einstein, is pretty much the foundation for one of the most powerful learning techniques ever.
It's known as the Feynman technique, and the idea is brilliant in its simplicity. You take whatever complex topic you're trying to learn, and you try to explain it in the simplest terms you can think of, like you're talking to a 5-year-old. This process instantly forces you to ditch all the complicated jargon, and it shines a giant spotlight on the exact spots where you don't really get it. It's like the ultimate test of whether you actually know your stuff. And that brings us to maybe the single biggest mistake students make, passively rereading their notes. Look, it feels productive, I get it, but it's actually one of the least effective ways to learn. Your brain sees the words, thinks, oh yeah, I know this, but it's not actually storing anything. The opposite of this, and the far, far more effective method, is something called active recall. Active recall is basically the act of pulling information out of your brain. So, close your book, put your notes away, and try to write down everything you remember about a topic from scratch. Use flashcards to actually quiz yourself, not just to read the answers. Every single time you force your brain to retrieve a memory, you're strengthening that connection. You're literally carving that information into your mind. All right, we've covered how to focus and how to learn. Now let's talk about where to aim that focus. This section is all about strategy. It's about working smarter, not just longer.
To work smarter, you have to understand the 80-20 rule. You might have heard of it as the Pareto principle. It says that in almost anything, 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your efforts. When it comes to studying, this means that not all topics are created equal, not even close.
So think about it like this. Your real mission isn't to know 100% of every single detail. That's impossible. Your mission is to identify that critical 20%, those core concepts, and absolutely master them. That small, focused chunk of effort is what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck and have the biggest impact on your grade.
So, how in the world do you find that magical 20%? Well, you have to become a bit of a detective.
Go look at old exams and see what kinds of questions pop up again and again. Pay close attention in class when your teacher says something like, "Now this is really important." And most of all, focus on your weak spots. Stop wasting time going over the stuff you already know cold.
Okay, now it's time for the hack that makes all these other strategies actually work. This isn't just a technique, it's about the fundamental biology of your brain. Seriously, think of these next two things as a free, built-in upgrade for your mind.
Here are the two absolute non-negotiables. First, sleep. Pulling an all-nighter is honestly one of the worst things you can do for your memory. See, your brain doesn't actually store information while you're studying. It does that work while you're asleep. That's when it sorts through everything and moves it to long-term storage. And second, exercise. You don't have to run a marathon. Even just a short walk gets more blood flowing to your brain, which directly boosts your memory and ability to learn.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground, so let's pull all of this together into one simple, super actionable playbook that you can start using like today.
Here it is, your new 6-step study playbook. 1. Beat procrastination by just using a timer to get started. 2. Learn things deeply by trying to explain them to a 5-year-old. 3. Remember things by testing yourself with active recall. 4. Stay focused with short, intense study sessions. 5. Work smart by finding and mastering that critical 20%. And 6. Supercharge your brain by prioritizing sleep and exercise.
And I just want to leave you with this one last thought. Knowing all these techniques is great. It's a fantastic first step. But the real change, the real power, comes when you actually start using them. Applied knowledge is everything. So, my question to you is really simple. Which one of these hacks are you going to try today? Don't try to do all 6 at once. That's overwhelming. Just pick one. The timer, the 5-year-old test, whatever. Just pick one and try it. See how it feels. Because that's how real change always begins. Good luck.